Welcome to Murshid
Yeah,
Sam's
welcome.
birthday party.
I think it was his 124th, I think I worked out. 124 years ago he was born.
It's interesting. I was during the night when I was awake again. I was imagining, being with his mother at that time, having given birth myself a few times. It's that feeling of, um, yeah, that incredible, miraculous. Usually, at some point during the night, that there's some of that goes on, and so yeah, it was interesting to connect with that.
Can I just check? Who knows who Samuel Lewis is, or otherwise known as Murshid Sam?
We are going to tell you about him, so that's
Oh,
fine.
good.
So yeah,
Right.
so there are some of you who do. So yeah, for the people who do know, of course, um, some of these stories will be very familiar, but we can. It's often good to hear them again, and there may be new parts to it. Um, the practices that we share originate in something called the Dances of Universal Peace, which originate in a universal Western Sufi path. And so Murshid Samuel Lewis was the originator of the Dances of Universal Peace. So they came as a practice out of his lifetime of experience of many different spiritual traditions. So we'll share a little bit about that today and a bit about some stories from his life, and some of his original dances and practices that he shared with his students. Anything else to add
Yeah.
at this point? Hmm.
No, I just wanted to say that I was reflecting this morning and feeling gratitude towards him because it was through the Dances of Universal Peace that I came to know of Universal Sufism and of Hazrat Inayat Khan. So it was my way into this spiritual path, or my spiritual path, I should say. So he's an important person, and these dances are important to me for that reason.
So let's begin this session as he would begin his sessions. We'll use the Sufi invocation of Hazrat Inayat Khan. Perhaps we'll use it in the traditional form, just using calling on the master this time. So if you know this, do please join with us, and if you don't, just let it wash over you. And what we always say is, if there's anything which doesn't sit easily with you, just breathe it out, just let it flow, let it go. No obligation to accept or believe anything that feels uncomfortable to you. But here we go. Let's invoke unity. Towards
Towards the
the
one,
one, the
the perfection
perfection
of
of
love,
love, harmony
harmony,
and
and beauty,
beauty, the
the
only
only being,
being, united
united
with
with
all
all
the
the
illuminated
illuminated
souls
souls
who
who form
form the
the
embodiment
embodiment
of
of
the
the
Master,
Master,
the
the
Spirit
Spirit
of
of
guidance.
guidance.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
Rahim.
We begin in
In
the
the name
name
of
of Allah, who is
Allah.
all mercy, all compassion. Bismillah.
Bismillah.
So we're going to start with the um, the chant and the dance with which Murshid Sam would often begin his gatherings, his meetings, known as the introductory Bismillah. So words in Arabic: Allah, 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 unity, oneness. And then we say Rahman,
Rahman.
Rahim.
Rahim.
So these are the names for love, for mercy and compassion, the sun and moon of love, radiant love, and love which is to be found in every point of the universe. Is that quite in tune? Allah, 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 Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim. Allah, 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 Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim. Allah, 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 Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim. So one could say that a quality of these original dances of Murshid Samuel Lewis is that they are very simple, very direct. You know, he wasn't a great musician, he wasn't a great singer, so they often have just 2 or 3 notes. But they have an immense directness, and combined with the movements and the intention of coming into unity as a group, they have enormous power. So we're going to bring some movements in with that, and we do invite you to stand if you have the space and join us, or modify the movements to suit you if you need to stay seated. I need you to move so that I can get up, please. Thank you. So for the Allah part, we're just going to be stepping like this, gently on the spot. We're very slowly moving to the right, but we just probably need to stay centered on our screens. So it's feeling that beginning on the right foot and feeling our movement together, because this is a word which means unity. Literally, it means all that is. It means all that is and all that is not, all here right now in this moment. So we're really calling on that. Allah, 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 Allah. And if we were all in the room together, we'd be holding hands in the circle doing this. So really feeling the circle. What we can do is reach out with all of our senses and connect as deeply as we can with everybody who's here with us now. The people who are on the screen right now, even reaching forward in time to people who might be watching this in the future. But let's bring them in, let's connect as humans through the energy centers in the palms of our hands, through our breath and our heart. You know, wherever we are around the world, we're sharing breath, the same air, the same wind, the same breath. So we are actually connected if we allow a hugely sensitive understanding of our energetic beings that also extends out beyond our physical body. The more sensitively we feel into that, the more we can be aware of how far that can travel. And if we some of us, you know, already have made deep connections with each other across space, you know, across the Atlantic Ocean, across the American continent, across time. And so we know that this is real. We know we can do this. So this is what we're calling into this Allah, this moment of unity. Then we're going to, when I bring in these names for love, because what's so important always is to remember that when we talk about unity and we talk about the divine, we're talking about love. So first of all, we're going to be raising our hands and then lowering them again. And let's again really feel our connection, so that we are raising our hands together. It's as if this circle, this virtual circle of people, we are being breathed up together. Nobody is instigating this movement, and nobody is being left behind. We're all included and connected. And this is a gesture that really can work across the screen to really make us connect with each other and to feel those movements together. So let's just try. So we'll do 4 Allahs and then we'll raise and lower our hands like this. Allah, 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 Allah. Here we go. Wonderful. So we'll do that a few times in the dance and you'll get the feeling for it. And I really do invite you to participate with as much of your being as you can bring in, including bringing in your sense of awkwardness and embarrassment if that's also here. That's welcome too. Let's just include all of it. So we'll do that a few times and then I'll call out one turn and we'll turn in place on our own for the Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. So it'll look like this. Allah, 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 Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. So that phrase, the turn lasts for the entire phrase. And if you're seated and can't turn or don't wish to, then you can have the intention inside yourself of finding that sense of turning, where the spheres are turning all the time around us. You could say we can feel ourselves as the still point that everything rotates around, or we can be the turning itself. So really embodying that, even if the physical body is not turning. And then we'll add a turn, so we'll make it 2 turns to that phrase, and finally 3 turns, which can start to move quite fast. But always, if you're moving, adapt it to your comfort and to your physical abilities. So here we go, calling on mercy and compassion, the sun and moon of love, unity, moving together as one, making these deep connections, these real physical connections across space. We're here together, we share one breath. We're going to begin with 10 Allahs, first time. After that it's always 4. Allah, 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 Allah. Raising hands. So watch your breath, notice your breathing, notice your heartbeat, notice any feelings in your body. Amen.
Amen.
So, just a few little words about the life of Murshid Sam, and then we'll do some more dances and practices. So he was born in 1896 in San Francisco to a wealthy family. His mother was related to the Levi family, and was it Rothschild as well? Anyway, there was some very wealthy connections in there, but he never really fitted in his family. He was always a bit of a misfit, and eventually he was actually sort of disowned really by his father, because he didn't want to go into the family business, and so he really spent his whole life. He was a gardener and a spiritual seeker, and for the first part of his life he mostly stayed around San Francisco, and his first spiritual teaching that he received, his first spiritual guides, were in the universal Sufi tradition. First of all, Murshid Rabia Martin, who was the first Sufi teacher, the first American Sufi, who was initiated by Hazrat Inayat Khan, and later he met Hazrat Inayat Khan himself. And you might like to read that passage about his meeting of Hazrat Inayat Khan, who was his as I say, his first main teacher. And although Inayat Khan died in 1927, he remained his main teacher all his life. He felt he was under his guidance.
So he'd already been studying the teachings of Hazrat Inayat Khan through Rabia Martin, and had attended classes for some time before Hazrat Inayat Khan then came to California, and Sam met him for the first time. And this is a story he tells about just before he met him for the first time. Just before Hazrat Inayat Khan's arrival in California in 1923, I saw him once again in vision. In the vision, I was going toward the Southern Pacific Station to greet the Murshid. Being of nervous disposition, I began to run, and I saw the train approaching with the head of the Murshid, Hazrat Inayat Khan, projecting from the smokestack. But I was too anxious, and my heart body projected from my subtle body, and at the same time the Murshid's heart body projected. The two heart bodies rushed at each other like two comets, and melted and moulded, becoming one. And this one became the spirit of the universe. In coming into his room for an interview the following day, summer solstice, however, there was no person, only a tremendous light. But it was not just light, it was a tremendous feeling of binding love. This first experience with Hazrat Inayat Khan stayed with me for life and continued to encourage me and strengthen me in performing his work.
When we were first coming in contact with the Sufis and the dancers in this country, so 25 years ago or so, I heard many stories about the strange behaviour of Murshid Sam. He was a very original person, and there are many unusual stories of things that he did, often quite embarrassing for his young students, I think. But so it's interesting that those were the stories that I heard in the early days. In more recent years, I've been lucky enough to go to America and to San Francisco. We went together and to visit the house of Murshid Sam and to meet many of his original students. And there's something that we've begun to recognize, that I should speak for myself, but I think you agree with me. When I meet those original students, there's a quality of extraordinarily deep love and extraordinary holding, binding love that I feel in their presence. And I've begun to recognize that as the essence of Murshid Sam. This is his transmission. And when I hear the story that Salit just read to you, I feel like that was Murshid Sam's transmission of the love that he received from his Murshid, Hazrat Inayat Khan. So I don't know, it's just an extraordinary, real experience of that transmission, quality of love.
And the light as well. There's a quality of light, of energy as well, for me, that comes through these teachers that we met.
So we could share some more stories perhaps in a little while,
Yeah.
and maybe lead another dance first. So why don't you do?
Yeah, so there's another dance which was created by Samuel Lewis, and it's kind of about how perhaps the life on the spiritual path is 75% perspiration and 25% inspiration.
That's a very generous balance. I normally hear 95% perspiration and 5% inspiration.
Yes, well, perhaps I'm more like it. But the reason I give those proportions is because in this particular dance, the sacred phrases are divided up 3 to 1. So the words are, I'll have to tune into the other half of my brain. Ya Muhammad Abdullah.
Ya Muhammad Abdullah.
And the other phrase is Muhammada Rasulallah.
Muhammad Rasulallah.
So Ya Muhammad Abdullah means, O Muhammad, servant of the divine. And we can think of ourselves and our service day to day. And Muhammadur Rasulullah, Muhammad is the messenger of the divine. And again, think of ourselves here. We can manifest through our lives the inspiration of oneness, of the divine, of love, in all our many different ways on this planet in our lives. So, Ya Muhammad Abdullah.
Ya Muhammad Abdullah.
And Muhammada Rasulallah.
Muhammada Rasulallah.
So I'll sing it. It's very, very simple. Ya Muhammad Abdullah. Ya Muhammad Abdullah. Muhammada Rasulallah. Ya Muhammad Abdullah. So that's the pattern. 2, Ya Muhammad Abdullah. 1, Muhammad Rasulullah. 1, Ya Muhammad Abdullah. Because the reason I say that is sometimes it's easy to get mixed up when you go back to the beginning again and think you've started again, but you haven't yet because you've got to do another one. Anyway, so
it's like that nice saying, isn't it? Before enlightenment, chopping wood and carrying water. After enlightenment, chopping wood and carrying water.
Yeah, we're still here in our bodies. We still need to eat, drink, have shelter, clothe ourselves and do all the daily tasks in order to stay in our bodies. Okay. Let's sing along with me this time. Ya Muhammad Abdullah, Ya Muhammad Abdullah, Muhammad Rasulullah, Ya Muhammad Abdullah. One more time. Ya Muhammad Abdullah, Ya Muhammad Abdullah, Muhammad Rasulullah, Ya Muhammad Abdullah. Okay, so if you're able and you've got the space, then do join me. So very simple. So on Ya Muhammad Abdullah, we're stepping forward and stepping out. And we're going to be stepping in a sort of triangle. Because if we were dancing this in a circle, we would be moving gradually to the right, but we're not going to do that here, but we're going to be stepping and raising our hands at the same time. Ya Muhammad Abdullah, Ya Muhammad Abdullah. And then returning on Ya Muhammad Rasulullah, we raise our arms to the heavens, and I'd invite you to stretch them out with energy and enthusiasm, connecting to the divine source. And we're turning to the right. Muhammad Rasulullah. And then we step in and out again, raising and lowering our arms. Ya Muhammad Abdullah. With energy. Ya Muhammad Abdullah, Ya Muhammad Abdullah. Turning. Muhammad Rasulullah, Ya Muhammad Abdullah, Ya Muhammad Abdullah, Ya Muhammad Abdullah, Muhammad Rasulullah, Ya Muhammad. Let's have just the low voices. Ya Muhammad Abdullah, Ya Muhammad Abdullah, Muhammad Rasulullah, Ya Muhammad Abdullah. High voices. Ya Muhammad Abdullah, Ya Muhammad Abdullah, Muhammad Rasulullah. Low voices. Ya Muhammad Abdullah, Ya Muhammad Abdullah, Muhammad Rasulullah, Ya Muhammad. High voices. Ya Muhammad Abdullah, Ya Muhammad Abdullah, Muhammad Rasulullah, Ya Muhammad Abdullah. Together. Ya Muhammad Abdullah, Ya Muhammad Abdullah, Muhammad Rasulullah, Ya Muhammad Abdullah. Quietly. Ya Muhammad Abdullah, Ya Muhammad Abdullah, Muhammad Rasulullah, Ya Muhammad Abdullah. Just breathing the words. Just moving. Ya Muhammad just noticing your breath, bringing your attention to your breath. Staying present in your body. Amen.
So as we said, Murshid Sam's first Murshid was Sufi Inayat Khan, who came from India. So he was born into the Muslim tradition. He also had strong connections with Hinduism, and he was already preaching the unity of religious ideals. So Sam really received that, and after his Murshid passed in 1927, he eventually Murshid Sam's parents died, and they did leave him some money in the end. Finally, he had enough money to be able to travel and to visit different countries. And at that point, he traveled to Japan, and he became recognized as a Zen Buddhist teacher. And he also traveled in India and spent time with Baba Ram Das and Mother Krishnabai, and was recognized by them as a teacher in the Hindu tradition. And he also traveled in Pakistan and in the Middle East, and everywhere he went he was recognized as a Sufi teacher. In his own family background, he came from a Jewish and Christian family, and he studied deeply in mysticism in both of those traditions as well. So he immersed his life, throughout his life he immersed himself in these mystical practices from many traditions, and as I say, was recognized and honored in those traditions as a teacher. And finally he came back to San Francisco, and this was in the 1960s, when San Francisco was the center of the summer of love and the hippie, the hippie revolution. How would you describe it? Anyway, hippies everywhere in San Francisco, and then there was a time when Murshid Sam was very unwell. He was in hospital, and he said he heard the voice of the divine speaking to him, and it said, I instruct you to be the spiritual leader of the hippies. And it was like then with that he was brought back to health and life, and so he didn't really know how that was going to happen, but there he was in San Francisco. And towards the end of the 1960s, indeed, the hippies began to come to him. They heard of his reputation, initially as a Zen Buddhist teacher. So people came to him for Zen practices. And so during the very end of his life, because he died at the very beginning of 1971. Yeah. So really from 1967 or 68 until January 1971 was the time of the flowering of his teaching. And during that time he met and taught many hundreds of young people and touched them very, very deeply. And that strength of transmission and teaching reaches from that point forward into this present day as well. So some of those of his students are still alive and still teaching, but the transmission continues. I just thought I would share with you a picture of Murshid Sam. I don't know if you can see that. How can I make that look good? Does that look good?
I think that's showing up.
Does that everyone see that okay? So here he is in his kind of hippie guise, in his...
This is a painting of him.
It's a painting, yeah, but it's a painting by one of his original students, and he's giving healing, that he's transmitting that healing energy through his hands and through his eyes, which was something that he did. So that was just a Yeah. A
And
chance to see.
is that painted by someone who knew him?
It's painted by one of his
Yeah.
students. That's right. That's what I just said. Yeah. Yes. So, a few stories, perhaps from some of his students, just to get some of that background. Sorry, there's so many stories, it's hard to decide which ones to read. I want to choose some of the very best ones. One that's just caught my eye. This was Shabda, who's currently the spiritual leader of the successor of Murshid Sam, and when he heard about Murshid Sam, he felt that he wanted to go and meet this teacher, and maybe he would have something for him. You know, he was a young man in his early 20s. Yeah, so he showed up at Murshid Sam's house, and he says, I entered Murshid's office for my first interview, and he asked, "What can I do for you?" And so Shabda said, "Well, I have no questions. I just felt I was supposed to come and see you." And you can feel all of that kind of youthful eagerness to meet the new teacher, to meet this teacher and to learn. And he goes, "Well, thanks for coming," he replied, and walked out the door. It's like, if you haven't got any questions, there we go, that's it. So, what can I do for you? I just felt I was supposed to come and see you. Well, thanks for coming. So these are some of the you get the sort of sense of that that personality. In fact, I'll read this bit here, which was sometimes could be quite abrasive or quite embarrassing to be around. As I say, that's one side of the story, because in my feeling and my experience, the most important part is this outpouring of huge love. So here's a story from Wali Ali, who's the head of the esoteric school, and again was one of his original students. So he says, whenever I spoke up, he listened. Murshid Sam listened. He listened for the ring of truth. He listened as if it was God himself speaking. It could be a most disconcerting experience. I came to understand that blanket of his energy field was like a test for those around him to be able to master a certain kind of positivity in order to break through. Thus one found after his passing that his disciples had been transformed into very positive beings, capable of taking the initiative in the same fashion as their Murshid. So this sometimes quite tricky exterior, it was like that was a test. If you could get through that, you had that strength and positivity that would actually enable you to take those teachings into the world yourself.
And I think that quality of positivity is certainly one that I've met in some of these students of his that are still teaching.
So, of course, in the 1960s in San Francisco, there were a lot of people experimenting with a lot of drugs and psychedelics and all kinds of this and that. And this is a story, so that was also true for a lot of the people who found Murshid Sam. And what he always said was, I can show you joy without drugs, ecstasy without drugs. So this is a story about one of the students who, well, he said, there was an incident that occurred in 1968. I'd already been totally shattered by psychedelics. Somebody slipped me some mescaline and belladonna on the sly. I couldn't sleep. I was really wrecked, so I rushed over to Murshid. What's the matter, he said. I told him what had happened and said I thought I was going crazy. He sat me down in a chair with the explanation, "You have to sit down in a chair because you're too tall." Then he put his arms around me and held me like a baby. He just breathed and created an aura of protection around me. After about 20 minutes, he asked, "You feel better?" Then he repeated about 3 times, "I don't normally do this." But that sense of that love and holding his students when they needed it, holding them like babies, that's something that comes again and again. We hear those stories. Shall we have another dance?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that one.
Do you?
Yes, I do.
All right.
We'll go into those ones later.
Okay. Just watching the time.
Oh, all right. Okay. Yes. All right.
Excuse our little exchanges, trying to
No,
plan
just do
on
do
the
it,
hoof.
but do it short. Do it short.
All right. Okay, so this, I'm going to do something quickly. All right. So this is really about following the leader.
Let's teach the mantra.
So the mantra is Om Sri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram.
Om Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram.
Om Sri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram.
Om Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram.
Just all praise to Ram. Ram, one of the Hindu divine names. And the melody is very simple. Om Sri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram. Om Sri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram. Om Sri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram. And I'm going to be doing movements with the chant. And I think I'm going to be walking on the spot. So if you're standing up, it's just a way of keeping embodied while we move. Normally we'd be moving in a snake with this all together, but we're going to be stepping on the spot. And when I want you to watch me, and when I change my gestures, I'd like you to follow me and do what I'm doing. Okay?
So just to say that one of the really powerful and magical things about these dances is their ability to be meditation embodied in movement, and also in shared movement and unifying a group, bringing a group into greater unity together. So these are practices that really actually affect that, make that happen.
And when we move together, we can amplify the experience that we're having. Now this is obviously perhaps more of a challenge doing this over Zoom, but let's try. Okay. Om Sri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram. 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 Om Hari Om.
Om Hari Om.
Thank you for your patience and your concentration.
So the dances of universal peace have evolved a long way, really, since the time of Murshid Sam, and many now have extremely beautiful melodies and complex musical accompaniments, and it can be a very different feel, and that can be very beautiful and beguiling and heart-opening and wonderful. However, there is something very important and kind of it's like an essence, the essential nature of these dances, which just goes straight to the core and is really effective at doing things. And what's interesting to us is that we've not really been doing so many of Murshid Sam's dances on Zoom in the last 6 months, under lockdown, because a lot of them don't really translate themselves very easily to this format. I think it's precisely because they work so powerfully with a group who are present together. But I really wanted to try an experiment and see whether we could bring some of that quality to Zoom, because I think we're still exploring what's possible in this format, and I think that if Murshid Sam was here now, he would be exploring and pushing those boundaries. So I want to share that there's a series of dances that he led where you have an outer circle who form a container, and they keep a very simple chant going and a very simple movement going, and they are holding the space, holding the energy, and then one or two people come into the center and do some different chanting and movements, and that will be that I will effectively step into the center of our circle, and I would like to invite you in turn to move with me. And so we'll be connecting directly with eye contact and through our movements. And this is a possibility to receive some transmission. Now, if you really, really don't want to do that, then I suggest that you place your you could switch your camera off, perhaps, and then I'll know not to call on you for that. But I'll show you first of all what it's going to be like, so you can see it's really very simple. And the rest of you will have a really important role at the rest of the time of holding this energetic space and circle, and Salik will be holding that with you.
So you'll be singing with me and moving with me if you wish.
That's right. Could you, you need to capo it, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to, we're going to use, again, it's words in Arabic. So the outer circle, the container, is chanting Allah, 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 Allah.
Allah.
So again, this unity, this all it is, this yes and no. I don't think he's really very well in tune. Yeah, sorry. He'll do a quick bit of guitar tuning while I talk you through this. So it's very simple, just Allah, 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 just those two notes like that, and stepping first of all to the right and then to the left. You just give me the chord. Allah, 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 Allah. There we go. So just like that. We'll get the chord in a moment when Robert's finished tuning. And then as I come forward and call on you, so for example, I might say Sarmad. And so then you know it's you, and I invite you to come forward as well. I'll come to the front. I'll really make eye contact with you, and you will know that I'm making eye contact with you. Because one of the troubles that we have with Zoom is that we don't know who's looking at us. We don't know if we're connecting directly with somebody or not. We in a way, we're all one, we're all connected, but this is a way of really making that direct contact. And we are going to say Ya Hai and Ya Hak, life and truth. So just give me the call. Ya Hai, Ya Hak. Ya Hai, Ya Hak. Ya Hai, Ya Hak. Ya Hai, Ya Hak. And then when I bow like this, you'll know that that part is finished, and you can return to singing the Allahs with Salik, and then I'll call on somebody else. Is that clear? So thank you for participating in this experiment. let's hope that it that
suits your voice better. It's a bit low for you.
Yeah.
And why don't we put it in G, just like the introductory bit.
Let's try that. Okay, we've changed key. Right, there we go. So we're starting with the circle. So again, we can reach out with our hands, we can reach out with our breath, we can reach out with our hearts. Really feel this alchemical circle, including all of us here, and this circle that stretches around the globe, that stretches across time and space, because it also includes people watching in the future. It includes people maybe who aren't actually physically here at all right now, somebody that you might want to bring in and include. But this circle energetically holding this space and including all of us here, all of us around the world. Allah, 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 Allah. Ana Latifa Noor. Ya Hai, Ya Hak. Ya Hai, Ya Hak. Ya Hai, Ya Hak. Ya Hai, Ya Hak. Dinah, Aziza. Dinah. Ya Hai, Ya Hak. 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 Sarmad. Ya Hai, Ya Hak. Ya Hai, Ya Hak. Ya Hai, Ya Hak. Ya Hai, Ya Hak. Hadi, Ya Hay, Ya Hak, Ya Hay, Ya Hak, Ya Hay, Ya Hak, Ya Hay, Ya Hak, Freya, Ya Hay, Ya Hak, Ya Hay, Ya Hak, Ya Hay, Ya Hak, Ya Hay, Ya Hak. Katie, Ya Hay, Ya Hak, Ya Hay, Ya Hak, Ya Hay, Ya Hak, Ya Hay, Ya Hak. Alison, Ya Hay, Ya Hak, Ya Hay, Ya Hak, Ya Hay, Ya Hak, Ya Hay, Ya Hak, Ya Hay, Ya Hak. Hannah, Ya Hay, Ya Hak, Ya Hay, Ya Hak, Ya Hay, Ya Hak, Ya Hay, Ya Hak. Margot, Ya Hay, Ya Hak, Ya Hay, Ya Hak, Ya Hay, Ya Hak, Ya Hay, Ya Hak. Anders, Ya Hay, Ya Hak, Ya Hay, Ya Hak, Ya Hay, Ya Hak, Ya Hay, Ya Hak. حسن عزيمة يا هك يا يا هك يا يا هك يا يا هك Life, oh truth. And again, noticing the breath. Watch your breath. Feel your heart. Feel the blood pumping around your body. Notice how it feels to be alive in this moment. Noticing your truth in this moment. Amen.
Amen.
So just one or two more stories to share very briefly, and then we should have made this a much longer session. We've not done half the things we were hoping to do. One of the stories that I was very touched by was from a wonderful woman named Davy, and she was very young when she met Murshid Sam. She was one of his youngest. I think she was his youngest student at that time. And 17. Or even younger. I think she might have been 15. And she had run away from home. She had a troubled background, and she was living in San Francisco, living in a commune with various other hippies. And at one point, her heart was broken. Her boyfriend that she was sharing with had gone off with somebody else, and she went to Murshid Sam, and her heart was breaking, and she was crying and sobbing, and didn't know what to do or where to go. And he took her on his knee, and you know, this can sound a bit kind of like weird, this old man doing this. All of the people that have told me these stories, that it's absolutely with the greatest clarity and boundary. There's never any sense of any wrongdoing. Okay, so, and this matters to me a lot, but so that it's absolutely clear that this was always done in the most clear and loving and wholesome way. So he took her on his knee and held her. So she's basically a girl, a child, 15 years old. Her heart is broken, and he took her on his knee and he said to her, "You never did anything wrong in your whole life." Now, when she told me that story, I cried. Maybe it touches a place in some of you as well. all of that, or everything she carried from her troubled family background, all of that weight of guilt and responsibility, and I must have done something wrong or else he'd have loved me, or, you know, all of that. You never did anything wrong in your whole life. You never did anything wrong. So again, this loving holding. And one final story is of a woman who, you know, again, she was a young woman in those days, I think about 21, something like that. And she'd been staying in Ram Dass's community on the East Coast, where everybody was very spiritual and very pure, and everybody wore white, and nobody was allowed to think about the past or the future. You had to stay in the present moment, and it was all very, you know, it was, I'm sure it was very, very lovely. I'm not in any way meaning to criticize Ram Dass, who's a wonderful teacher, but that was where she was coming from. She had this sense that this was how spirituality needed to be. This is how she told it to me. It's like in her 20-year-old self, you know, it was about purity and whiteness and beauty and simplicity and all those things. And so she arrived, she drove all the way with somebody else all the way across America, looking for this Sufi Sam, as he was known. Finally made their way to his house, and so somebody came to the door who she thought his name was Roly Poly. It was Wali Ali, but that was how she heard his name, was Roly Poly. It was like, what is this? And then they went up the stairs, a little dark staircase to this little dark house, and there was this strange man with odd socks and, you know, a kind of slightly grubby cardigan, and it's like, you know, what is this? This can't be a spiritual teacher. He's not wearing white. He's not all of this. And he's kind of, you know, talking in this quite loud way, which she's finding, oh, like, you know, where's all the spirituality? And then she said, and then he took my hand and led us in a dance. And she said, he took my hand and I fell in love and I followed him. I knew I would follow him for the rest of my life. It was just that in that instant of feeling the touch of his hand, that love just went right through her. So I really hope that in some of these stories we've been able to share something of who we experience through the transmission that we've received, and something of the love and illumination that has brought to us, to our lives, and that we hope to be able to share with some of you. That's our inspiration. So I'd like to lead Murshid Sam's devotional zikr now, and then I'll try and leave time that we can have a little go at the Kalama, which is Murshid Sam's best known and best loved dance, I think, at the end. So all those practices that I was going to share, we'll have to do those another time. So we're going to modify. Where's the kappa? I'm going to, again, modify these movements to work on Zoom. But let's just learn. So we use these words in Arabic. La ilaha illallah.
La ilaha illallahu.
La ilaha.
La ilaha.
El-il. Allahu.
Allahu.
La ilaha. El So we'll sing that for a while, and we'll do that just reaching out with our hands, holding hands in our circle. And then the words change very slightly. We start to sing Il Illaha, El Il Allahu.
Il Ilaha, El Il Allahu.
And at that point, we're going to bring our hands so that our right hand's on our heart and our left hand's on our belly. And you might like to just also, at that point, step a little bit closer to the screen. If we were dancing in a circle, we'd be linking elbows and coming in a bit closer. So this is just a way of trying to get us to feel a little bit closer. So the same melody. Il ilaha, el illallahu. And then we have a third set phrase, which is Hu ilaha el illallahu.
Hu ilaha el il Allahu.
And for this phrase, we're going to fold our arms across our heart. Left arm on right shoulder, right arm on left shoulder. And again, coming a little bit closer to the screen. So, Hu ilaha el illallahu. So let me show you how the movements work all together now, and then Salik will do them with you so that you can copy him. So whilst we do these different shapes with our hands, can I hold your hand, please?
Yeah.
We're going to be using our heart to sweep to the right. It's like we're making this container for love. And then we're going to bow and drop into that container of love. So it looks like this. La ilaha el illallahu. La ilaha el illallahu. Then turning. La ilaha el illallahu. La ilaha el illallahu. So let's try that together. When the words change, the movements change. But you can just follow Salik. La ilaha el illallahu. La ilaha el illallahu. Turning. La ilaha el illallahu. Ooh. So we'll move straight on to the kalama. Just to finish, this is, as I say, Murshid Sam's best known, best loved dance. La ilaha el Allahu. All separation is illusion. Only one reality, only one God, only one, only one. And Muhammad Rasulallah. Muhammad is the messenger of that unity. Muhammad, the seal of the prophets. After Muhammad, we are all prophets. It's up to us to share this message of unity wherever we go, sharing love and unity with every breath. We're going to start by stepping out. La ilaha, stepping in. So friends, thank you for joining us on this celebration of the birth of Murshid Sam, and thank you to Sam himself, Sufi Ahmed Murad Chisti Samuel Lewis, the father, the birther, the creator of the Dances of Universal Peace, and the transmitter of so much love in this world. With all gratitude and love.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. All praise to the One. So let's close our session again in the way that we were taught by one of Murshid Sam's great friends, Joe Miller, who wrote the song for this Buddhist prayer. May all beings be well. May all beings be happy. Peace, peace, peace. And as we sing it, we'd just like to invite you to hold, there's a member of our circle, Kerry, who's got an operation tomorrow, and maybe you also know people that you would like to hold in this light and send them a blessing of love and peace. So we won't this time invite you to name them, but just know that they are held in this circle of light as you hold them in your awareness, bringing them into that. So if you know, sing with us. If you don't know it, join in to the best of your ability. It's very easy. May all beings be well. May all beings be happy. Peace. 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 Thank you, Murshid Sam.
Thank you.